Hello, everybody. This is Nick Sforza, the owner-broker of the Manhasset Realty Group. As you know, we cover all of Long Island, all of Queens. So if you're looking to sell your home, please reach out to us. We'd be happy to help. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Robert Curry, who is a partner of Curry Schneps LLP in Manhasset. Just to brag about Rob a bit, his firm has an AV Martindale Hubbard peer review rating, which is the highest rating in legal ability and ethical standards from the Preeminent Attorney Rating Organization. And if that's not enough, they were named by U.S. News and World Reports as one of the best law firms in the United States. Curry Schneps LLP is a premier elder law and a trust and estates law firm that recognizes that their clients work hard to attain their standard of living, raise and educate their children, provide for their retirement years, and see to it that their families are cared for in the event of their disability or death. Very impressive resume. So welcome, Rob. Thank you so much for joining me today in this weekly podcast. It means a lot to me. I think my audience is going to get a lot out of this. So really, really appreciative that you're here today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks for inviting me, Nick.
Of course. So before we get into some questions, why don't we start by, if you don't mind, just tell me about yourself, personally, who you are, so my audience can connect to you a little bit.
Sure. So I was raised on Long Island. I still live on Long Island with my wife and my two children. Mm-hmm. Went to Chaminade High School, stayed locally for my higher education, went to St. John's University, where I know you're also a grad.
Yeah, grad. Go Red Storm.
Go Red
Red
Storm.
Men when we were there, but
Right.
Red Storm now. Yeah,
Right.
Absolutely.
So I went to St. John's. I got a bachelor's degree in finance, and then I went on to Hofstra University, School of Law, where I got my law degree. And personally, I would also like to donate some of my free time, so I'm involved in a local youth sports organization in a coaching capacity. And then I'm also involved in a local nonprofit called great nonprofit called the Alzheimer's Disease Resource Center. Mm-hmm. So I volunteer my time on the board of directors for that. And that's really a great organization. It helps family as well as non-family caregivers of people that suffer from Alzheimer's and other forms of dementia. So It's a great local organization right here on Long Island as well.
Great. And your law firm is in Manhasset. Obviously, you want to give the address?
Sure. It's on Northern Boulevard, 1615 Northern Boulevard in Manhasset.
Great. So, Rob, I just realized a St. John's graduate, also a Jet fan like me. So we suffer we suffer in multiple ways, although St. John's did really well last year.
Yeah, it was a great, exciting basketball season. Yeah,
kudos to Rick Pitino.
Yeah.
All right, so why don't we start? I don't know if I do a lot of content on social media about elder, estate sales and things like that. And I don't know if everybody really understands what that is. So why don't we start with what does an elder lawyer or trust and estates attorney do?
Right. Sure. So on the elder law side, a big part of our job is dealing with protecting real estate, protecting homes primarily from the cost of long-term care, because people don't necessarily realize that Medicare, which is the primary health insurance coverage for older people, only covers up to 100 days max in a nursing home and covers typically very little, if anything, at home and nothing in assisted living. So as elder law attorneys, we set things up to protect the assets from the expensive medical care that may be needed and custodial care that may be needed. Yeah. And we also put in mechanisms to make sure that if you become incapacitated, there'll be people who have the proper legal authority to manage your affairs without them having to run off to court and incur all that unnecessary expense.
Yeah. So how do your clients deal with, like, obviously I'm a realtor, so how do your clients deal with the real estate in your line of work, most of the time?
So, real estate comes up all the time in my line of work. I could break it down primarily into advanced planning versus work that we do post-death or in a crisis. So the advanced planning is we help them set things up to, again, not only avoid the costs of long-term care and protect the asset, but also avoid court proceedings upon death, which is the probate proceeding. We also do planning to potentially save taxes, such as keeping it outside of a person's taxable estate. And then another big issue is planning to set it up to avoid family conflict and avoid, family disharmony. For example, what if you pass away and you have 3 kids and one lives in the house? But you want your estate to go equally to your 3 kids. So this type of thing needs to be planned for very, very carefully. Otherwise, the kids could end up, hating each other and in court, fighting it out. So
Yeah, I've
that's
seen
really important.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've had some. This is why I like referring Rob all the time. Before he even gets to me, is because I've seen situations where it's really smooth, and then situations where it's really ugly.
Right.
Sometimes it gets to me like right in the midst of the argument. Sometimes it finally gets resolved, and it comes to me, and I'm dealing with siblings that are just not getting along, and it's just it definitely affects the sale too when that time comes. So yeah, I've seen both sides there. So what would you say the biggest mistakes you see people make with their homes when it comes to estate planning?
Yeah, great question. There's several big mistakes that come to mind. One mistake is people sometimes think as I get older, let me just sign the deed to the house over to the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's oftentimes a huge mistake if you don't do it properly.
Okay.
If you just sign the deed over to the children, you have no legal rights to the house anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Technically, the children could ask you to leave the next day,
Yeah.
and you'd have to.
Wow.
But also, if everybody gets along swimmingly, which is hopefully the case, if the children now own the home, you lose the step-up in basis. You lose your real property tax exemptions, such as a STAR, veterans, or seniors.
Yeah.
And also you're exposing the house to any and all claims that may exist against the kids.
Yeah.
So that's one big mistake. Another big mistake is since the house is typically the most valuable asset in our clients' estate assets, they don't protect it in the event they become sick. Okay.
Yeah.
And then the other big mistake is they don't avoid probate. They can set things up again to pass upon their death outside the courts rather than inside the courts.
Yeah.
So those are probably the three biggest mistakes that come to mind. Again, not avoiding probate, not protecting the asset if they get sick, and not setting it up to avoid family conflict.
Yeah. How long does probate typically take if it has to go into probate?
Yeah, the problem is even simple probates we're seeing taking 6 to 12 months.
Yeah. Wow.
Some of that is, the court staffs are traditionally very short-staffed.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have enough people. And then
Yeah.
with COVID, people retiring, leaving, things like that,
Is that more Long Island or Queens or both?
Really
One
both.
versus
New
the
York
other?
City,
Yeah.
the 5 boroughs, and Long Island. So
Yeah.
even a simple, uncontested estate could take 6 to 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And, a big problem with that is in the meantime, the property may be sitting vacant.
Yeah.
And there's taxes, there's insurance,
Yeah.
and there's all these carrying charges that are, eating into it.
Yeah, even vandalism. Sometimes some of these homes get broken into.
Yes.
Damages occur, broken pipes, and
Yeah.
the value of
winter
the
they
home
freeze
just goes
and
down
things.
drastically. I saw a home the
Yeah.
other day. It went through that situation. It went through probate, and I believe the person that owned the one who inherited lived down the block, but it just was vacant forever, and they had a pipe burst, and the house was just. I mean, the value of that home went down. Must have went down hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. Waiting for it to clear through the courts. So
someone came to see me a few months ago regarding a property that they wanted to have something done with it and have it pass on to them and their siblings. The parent passed away 10 years ago, and the property has just been sitting there.
Yeah, I don't.
And I said, "What has been going on the last 10 years?"
Yeah.
And she said, "Well, no one's really taken the bull by the horns, and everyone's well off financially, so it's just been sitting there." But it's the property value has obviously declined, and it was just amazing.
Yeah, that's why I like getting involved in estates, because it's crazy to hear that. You think when someone has a house, they want to sell it and get the money as soon as possible.
Right.
But there's people that either they're well off, they don't live in New York, they're out of state owners, and it's a burden to them, and they don't want to really be involved, and the house is just sitting there. So, I love getting involved in estate sales because I really feel like where my attributes come into play is I can manage the home for them, I can keep an eye on it, I can repair things for them. I have good connections for people that can maintain the home so it doesn't fall apart. Obviously, make sure there's no vandalism, no break-ins, set up alarm systems, stuff like that. So I could really take care of my clients, do the right thing for them, help them sell it, help them manage it, get them, their assets to them as soon as possible, assuming it's the right time. But it always baffles me that someone just lets it go like that. But I think it's a lot easier than what people realize. It just needs to go to the right people.
Right. They should have a good attorney. They should have a good broker.
Yeah.
And they don't realize they're taking money out of their pockets because if taxes are not being paid, there's interest accruing, which could be significant.
Yeah.
And now when the property is sold, there's going to be some huge tax liens against it.
Yeah. That's
and they're really shooting themselves in the foot by just sticking their head in the sand.
What about how about elderly? The elderly homeowners, should they put their home in a trust? Do you think, or what are the pros and cons of that?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I get this all the time.
Yeah.
Whether they should put a house in a trust really depends on their personal situation and what their goals are, But oftentimes people are well advised to put it into a trust, and there's different types of trusts. But for many people that do planning to protect the asset from the cost of long-term care, many people do end up putting it in an irrevocable type of trust.
Yes.
And that starts the Medicaid look-back period, and that could be a way to save their most valuable asset, the house.
What's the difference between irrevocable and revocable for those that don't know?
Right, yeah. So an irrevocable trust is one where a person can not just cancel it the next day or sometime after that, and they can't typically use the cash if it's cash inside the trust. So if the house is sold or they have investments, they can't just take that back.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do for Medicaid. Okay.
Gotcha.
However, a revocable trust is set up more entirely to avoid probate, and that one you can use the cash, you can be the trustee,
Yeah.
you get no protection for Medicaid.
From Medicaid.
Yeah.
From that 5-year look back, basically.
Right. Yeah.
So what about will and trust? I know sometimes I talk to people, I hear them, and I'm like, do you have a good estate attorney? And they're like, yeah, I have a will, I'm all set.
Right.
So what's the difference between a will and a trust?
Right. So a trust is essentially a will substitute. So you get to pass assets outside the courts. Okay. A will only governs assets that are in a person's name alone at the time when they pass away. So meaning they don't have a co-owner, it's not in a trust, or they don't have a designated beneficiary. Any of those assets go into a will, and then the will has to be submitted to the court through the process called probate.
Yeah.
A trust, on the other hand, is a private document that doesn't get filed with the court, and it could have the same terms as your will would have, saying, these are my intended beneficiaries.
Yeah.
But upon death, and here's the real value of it, assets pass automatically pursuant to the terms of the trust to the beneficiaries, and the courts don't have to get involved. So everything happens much quicker. The property's not sitting there languishing, and you don't have all these court fees and legal fees. So, trust is oftentimes advisable.
Just to go off, like, why would someone not do a trust? And it sounds amazing, right? Like, it sounds like something you should do. Any reason? Is it the cost? Is it that they're just afraid to relinquish some of their things?
So irrevocable trust, you can't be, that's the Medicaid type of trust. You can't be the trustee of your own trust.
Yeah.
But you can retain the power to remove and replace the trustees. So some people are uncomfortable giving up that control and having other people, typically their kids, name as trustees.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest hurdle that we see. Also, it's a lack of education. Sometimes people think that either Medicare is going to cover their nursing home for the rest of their life if they get sick, or they just think, oh, I have time and I'll do it some point in the future. They don't know that they can do this, So a lot of it's education as well.
When do you think is a good time for someone to get it, like, do a trust? Is it when they're in their 70s, 80s, when they have children, like when they own a house? Like, what's a good time in their lives to start doing something like that?
Yeah, I mean, for an irrevocable trust, a good time is probably in your 60s, early 70s. But if a person has a family history of Alzheimer's or dementia, and especially an early onset, then they might even think of doing it, earlier in their 50s or 40s. I have clients in nursing homes with Alzheimer's in their 40s and 50s.
Wow,
So it's sad. It's such a terrible disease.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Can you explain what a life estate is and when it makes sense to use that?
Sure. So a life estate is a legal interest in a piece of real property. It's not considered technically an ownership interest, but it's considered the right to reside on the property the rest of your life, rent-free. And by having a life estate, you have the right not only to live there, but you also have the obligation to pay any carrying charges on the property, keep it in good repair. And then when you pass away, the life estate is automatically extinguished, and the property passes automatically to what's called the remainder people who have already been named on the deed. So it is a popular technique, but more often than not, we also consider trusts, because the trusts have certain advantages that the deed with a life estate does not have. For example, with a trust, you can use the full capital gains tax exclusion for the person who created the trust, and it's $250,000 for a single person, $500,000 for a married person.
Yeah.
You use a deed with a life estate, then you don't get the same benefit. The benefits may be reduced when using the capital gains tax exclusion. And also, if you put a property in a deed with a life estate, and now a person goes into a nursing home and the property is sold, a portion of the sale proceeds goes back to the person who has the life estate, and that could kick them off of Medicaid.
Yeah.
You don't have that problem with a trust.
Gotcha.
But there are some cases where doing a deed with a life estate makes sense. So it's very fact specific, and it's no one planning technique fits every situation. So we really spend the time to get to learn the situation and give them the best recommendations.
There's so much information. I'm like laughing because it's this is why you got to talk to professionals. Before it gets to become a problem. Because there's so much information out there. It's so overwhelming. I could listen to this 100 times and still not understand it completely. So that's why I'm so glad you're doing this, because this is obviously on YouTube, and my followers and my audience could be watching this over and over and educate themselves and hopefully do the right thing. So when it comes to inheriting property, what happens when someone actually now inherits real estate? What's the process legally, financially, and so forth?
Right. So it starts again with how the property was titled upon death. If it was just in the decedent's name alone at the time of their death, then it falls into their will, and then we have to do that probate proceeding. We have to file papers with the court.
Yes, which takes 6 to 12 months possibly.
Even uncontested, simple ones could take 6 to 12 months.
Yes.
That's what we're seeing. Sometimes a little bit quicker, sometimes a little bit longer. If it's contested or there's some type of issue, then it could go on for years. So it can get very expensive. Just to open a file in probate court, the court filing fee to walk through the door, if an estate is worth more than $500,000, the court filing fee is $1,250. Then you have all the legal fees on top of that, attorney's fees. So that is what happens if it was titled in the name of the decedent. If it was in a trust or as a deed with a life estate or what's called a transfer on death deed, then it doesn't go to the courts. It avoids probate, and it goes directly to the designated beneficiaries. So that is typically recommended. To again avoid the court and have everything pass quickly and not have all those carrying charges, go on for months and months while you're waiting for the court process to resolve.
Okay, so my next question, actually, I think you answered it, was do heirs always have to go through probate when real estate is involved? I'm guessing the answer is no.
Right, exactly. If they're smart, no, because what I always tell people is if you have a choice of putting your estate through the court system or not putting it through the court system,
exactly.
It's really kind of a no-brainer. You want to avoid subjecting your family to all those fees and delays and making it all a matter of the public record.
Yeah, absolutely. Are there tax implications people should know about when selling inherited property?
Yes. So what happens is typically when a property is inherited, you get a step up in basis. So what that means is, let's say somebody paid $50,000 for the property back in 1970, and now it's worth $1 million. Step up in basis means it's now worth $1 million, the cost basis. And if you sell it for $1 million, there's no capital gains tax. So it's a good idea to first of all get an appraisal on the property. We recommend a certified residential real estate appraiser. And that's helpful because when you do sell the property, your accountant is going to say, what was the step up in basis, when the parent died?
Yes.
And if you have an appraisal in hand, you can say this is what it was worth.
Okay.
So you have that issue. So we do recommend getting an appraisal.
So that should be done when the parent passes away? Or
yes.
Or when it's put in a child's name in a trust? So
when the parent passes away,
okay.
Right.
Very good.
Yeah, and then there's also another rule that people should be aware of. Let's say a married couple owned a home, and now let's say the husband passes away and the wife inherits it, and the wife is thinking, I may stay here, I may not. Maybe I'll downsize and move into a condo or a co-op or something like that. There's what's called a 2-year rule, which is if the surviving spouse continues to live there and it's their primary residence for at least 2 of the last 5 years, if they sell it within 2 years of the first spouse's death, they still get to take advantage of the $500,000 capital gains tax exclusion. After that, it's only a $250,000 capital gains tax exclusion.
Yeah, wow.
So when people are thinking about maybe I'll sell it in a year, or maybe I'll sell it in 3 years, I alert them that this 2-year rule is a consideration.
Yeah, That's what I'm saying. You can save a lot of money. That's a lot of money you're talking in taxes. My goodness.
Yes.
Yeah, especially the first one. You talk about the step up.
Right.
Like my parents, when they bought their house in Bayside, they bought it for like $30,000. They ended up selling it. I mean, it was before they passed. They sold it, but the whole step up thing, taking it at 6, 7, and then selling it for 700, 800, like you're talking about saving tons and tons of money on taxes. That's amazing.
Yeah, and as you know, the property values over the last several decades have just skyrocketed in the New York area.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah, because a lot of it can go to tax, and that's a shame. That's pretty much usually the big nest egg for somebody that passes on, to their next generation, and it's a shame that a lot of it goes to taxes. So
exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Great tip. What should real estate professionals know when helping clients sell inherited homes?
Yeah. So there's a few things that come to mind with that. One thing is they should make sure that there's proper insurance on the house.
Mm-hmm.
Some homeowners policies say that when a person vacates a house, and let's say the house is vacant for 30 days, the insurance coverage automatically lapses.
Yeah.
So the last thing an insurance broker wants to do is be showing a house that's not properly insured.
Yes.
And then the estate ends up getting sued because somebody gets hurt on the property.
Yes.
So I typically, tell clients and tell brokers, have the client contact their insurance broker and make sure there's proper coverage on it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that definitely comes to mind.
So what would they be telling the insurance broker, that it's obviously the home is inherited and it's vacant or something like that, right?
Right.
And things have to change when it's a vacant home.
Right.
Yeah.
So they want a policy that covers a vacant home.
Yes.
It's considered an increased risk.
Yes.
So it's going to cost more than a normal policy, but it's money well spent to protect a valuable asset.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that comes to mind. Another thing is the brokers, and I'm sure you're doing this already, is check the title on the property, check the open permits, because a lot of people did work to their house and they never got certificates of completion or certificates of occupancy. And the worst thing you want to do is find a great buyer for the home and then find out there's a problem with the title, there's a problem with open permits, and then start dealing with it 5 months later when you could have done it when the property was first listed. And the other thing I tell brokers that they're not always aware of, some brokers have told me the client says they can't sell the house right now because the will is being contested. So now the property is going to sit there and sit there and sit there. But in New York, there's something called preliminary letters testamentary, which is, let's say someone's challenging the will and saying it's invalid, but let's say you're the nominated executor, you could ask to be appointed what's called the preliminary executor, which does not allow you to give any money to any beneficiaries, but it allows you to start handling the estate.
Yes.
And that includes the ability to sell the house, convert it into cash, and get rid of all those carrying charges.
Yes.
Yes.
And then once whatever is done in the courts gets settled and the beneficiaries it gets dispersed to them. Right?
That's right. Then the beneficiaries have been determined by the court, and then you know who to give the money to.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those are a few things that come to mind.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't come across that one yet, but believe it or not, I had somebody who inherited a home and just asked me if I could sell it. And the first thing I said to them is like, is it cleared with the courts and all that? And they were like, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, did you talk to an estate attorney? And, so sometimes these people are so quick to say, yeah, we're going to sell. And they didn't go through the steps that you mentioned, making sure that the assets are protected or there's a will or anything like that. I mean, most of the time there is, but it's amazing how sometimes the parents and the children don't communicate with this sort of stuff. So it's and especially when it comes to the unexpected, unfortunate deaths. When they're in their 50s and 60s,
right. They didn't expect
you don't think something's going to happen. But like I'm 52, and I'm trying to make it a priority now to take care of my stuff. And we spoke briefly about it before, but I got to finalize that because things can happen. You never know.
Yeah, just look, 9/11. We're coming up on the 24th anniversary. How many of those people, sadly, went to work that day and didn't think they'd be coming home?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you never know with life. We don't have the control we think that we have.
Yeah.
But the other thing is also I've had clients come in and they say they want to sell a property or they want to transfer title to a trust. And we look at the deeds on record and they're not actually the owner.
Yeah.
They thought they were the owner. And sometimes what happened was there should have been a probate proceeding, 2 generations ago when the great-grandfather died, the way title was held. and they didn't realize it. They thought they just inherited the property.
Yeah.
So we have to go back and
Yeah.
file on the grandfather's estate
Oh, wow.
to fix it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You must see some stories.
yes.
Let's talk about, protecting assets for the aging clients,
Mhm.
right? I know you just handled something with somebody I know personally. How can seniors protect their home from being taken to pay for long-term care or Medicaid or something like that?
Right. So when people come in, we discuss the different options for financing long-term care
Mm-hmm.
to hopefully avoid them having to privately pay out of their own pocket and
Yeah.
lose their life savings.
Yep.
So, the different options include long-term care insurance. Problem with long-term care insurance is once you get into your 70s and 80s, it becomes very cost prohibitive,
Mm-hmm.
and you may not even medically qualify anymore. Your
Mhm.
health may not be up to par at that
Yeah,
point.
absolutely.
So long-term care insurance, but we discuss it. It's a good option, especially for younger people, like in their 50s. And then the other options, sometimes there's veterans benefits,
Mm-hmm.
particularly for people that have what's called a service-connected disability, meaning they became disabled while they were on their military service.
Mm-hmm.
But for many people, they don't want long-term care insurance, or they're not a veteran who falls in a category of eligibility. So we end up doing Medicaid planning,
Yeah.
and Medicaid has become the safety net for the quote-unquote middle class who has a house and maybe has some other, few $100,000 in assets.
Yeah.
And that's where we start talking about the different options, which could include an irrevocable trust. It may include a deed. It may include a deed with a life estate.
Mhm.
Really what's best for that situation depends upon their personal situation, their family dynamics,
Yeah.
and what their goals are.
Yeah.
But there's definitely techniques that are employed to do Medicaid planning to protect the house.
Yeah.
If they come in, we get to know them, we understand the situation, then we can make the appropriate recommendations.
So what is that, when you hear people say the Medicaid look-back period, what is a Medicaid look-back period, and how does it affect home transfers?
Right. So the Medicaid look-back period is an audit period,
Mm-hmm.
which means that if you apply for Medicaid nursing home benefits, the government gets to see all your financial records for the 5-year period preceding.
Mm-hmm.
And they're looking to see if you gave assets away. And that could include a house, it could include a brokerage account, a bank account.
Yeah.
And if you gave assets away, there could be what's called a penalty period.
Yeah.
And a penalty period, it means it's a period of ineligibility where you're not yet eligible for Medicaid nursing home benefits.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what the look-back period is.
Yeah.
The penalty period, sometimes there are exceptions. For example, if a home is transferred to a caretaker child, which is a biological or adopted child that lived with the parent for a 2-year period preceding institutionalization,
Mm-hmm.
even though it falls within the 5-year look-back,
Yeah.
a transfer to that child would not cause a penalty.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain exceptions like that.
Gotcha.
So we try to take advantage of those exceptions
Yeah.
wherever we can.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But nursing home Medicaid is a 5-year look-back period. Home care Medicaid, which is, getting an aide in the house, and also there are some assisted living benefits.
Yeah.
That type of Medicaid, there is a law on the books with a 2.5-year look-back period,
Yeah.
but they have not yet enforced it. So right
Mhm.
now, there's no look-back period to get an aide in the house
Okay.
or to avail yourself of some community Medicaid benefits, such as
Interesting, yeah.
assisted living. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Can transferring a home to a child or children create any legal or financial risks?
Yes, if it's not done correctly, they could really be putting themselves in a bad spot by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if you just transfer a home outright to a child, you could lose your property tax exemptions,
Yeah.
such as a star, veterans, seniors, things like that.
Yes. Yeah.
You'll also can lose the step up in basis,
Yeah.
which could be huge, and your kids could end up
Yes.
paying
Yeah.
hundreds of thousands of dollars in capital gains tax
Yeah.
if they sell it.
Yeah.
And then also you're exposing the home to any and all claims that exist against your child.
Mm-hmm.
And if the child goes through a divorce or gets into a car accident and gets sued, things like that,
Yeah.
the home could be at risk.
Yeah.
And you living there doesn't change the fact that,
Yeah.
the house is exposed and
Yes.
you could be kicked out of the house. So
Wow.
doing it that way is not typically recommended.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's really good information. Let's talk about, I'm sure you work with a lot of real estate professionals. When should a real estate broker bring in an elder law or estate planning attorney?
Yeah, I would suggest, as soon as possible, which would typically mean when you get the listing agreement,
Yeah.
because it's a good idea if we look at the title see how it's set up. And as I alluded to before, we've had cases where we saw that the title was not clear and there needed to be a proceeding filed, maybe even on a prior generation.
Yeah.
But then even if the title is good, which hopefully it is,
Yeah.
it's a good idea to have us meet with the seller to discuss how the proceeds from the sale should be handled.
Yeah.
Because, if they're 80 years of age and they're downsizing to go buy a condo or a co-op, maybe they're going to be in a nursing home in a few years.
Yeah.
And if they get $800,000, $1 million from a sale of a home, if they don't handle that money properly, that could go all down the drain.
Yeah.
So it's a good idea if we meet with them and explain how to handle the proceeds.
Okay. All right. That's interesting. I just assume like when there's always an attorney involved, you know what I mean? So there could be a scenario, I had that scenario, there could be a scenario when they're selling a home and they don't have an estate attorney involved in this situation.
Yeah.
So calling someone like you or referring someone like you obviously is a good suggestion at that point.
It is. People typically have a real estate attorney involved when they do a sale.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
that attorney is kind of limited to that transaction and
Yeah.
doesn't really give you a global view
Yeah.
of how to protect the money and how to deal with elder law and estate planning issues.
Yeah, and no disrespect to attorneys, but sometimes lots of them do multiple things. They do real estate, they do elder, they do this, and I think it's important. Like you're just saying so much great information, which I really appreciate. I think it's really important that someone talks to somebody that's specific, like you, that really is their niche, is the elder law and estates and trust and so forth.
Yes.
Have you worked with brokers on complex family sales or estate disputes? What went well in your history, what didn't, and so forth. Some
Yes.
like crazy stories, success stories.
Yeah, we almost specialize in those difficult situations.
I'm
They
sure
seem
you
to
got
come
a
in
bunch
on
of
a
good
regular
ones.
basis.
Yeah.
A good example, I'll tell you a story of a case where a parent passed away. They left the home to 3 kids.
Mm-hmm.
One of the kids lived in the house. One of the kids wanted to sell the house and cash out right away. And the third kid wanted to rent it out. Thought they could do very well with a rental.
Yeah.
So the parents' estate plan didn't really properly address this. So the kids were kind of warring and saying, what are we going to do? Is this going to end up in litigation?
Yeah.
So we actually were able to get involved and we were able to work out an agreement. We structured an agreement where the kids were able to amicably work it out. And basically the agreement was, okay, the house is going to be sold. The child who thought that they wanted to live there, they came to see that they really couldn't afford to continue to live there anymore once the parent was no longer there.
Yeah.
So, and then the other children who wanted to sell it, one of them had kind of an unrealistic view of how much they could get. So with the good real estate broker, we were able to show comparable sales and what a reasonable selling price would be.
Let me guess, they thought it was more.
Right, right. You never see that before, right?
No,
Nick?
never,
Yeah.
never.
So we were able to work out a deal. But basically, the deal was the house was going to be sold, and it was.
Mm-hmm.
The child who was living there was given several months to continue to live in the house, so they could find another place.
Yeah.
And by getting a good real estate broker involved, and this is before I knew you, otherwise you would have got the referral.
Thank you.
By getting,
Can you say that again, by the way?
Right. Absolutely. By having a good real estate broker involved, we were not only able to see the comparable sales and satisfy everybody that we were getting a good price, but that broker was also able to help the child who was moving out of the house due to the sale find appropriate housing.
Yeah.
So
I went through something like that recently. I don't want to get into too many details just in case they're watching, but it was siblings had an issue. One was living there, one was not. Basically, the one that was living there didn't want to leave, had to leave, had to sell. They hired me, thank goodness, got a great price on the home, but we were able to negotiate that the person that was living there can stay 45 days after the sale so they can use that money to rent something that was to their liking. And that just happened like maybe 6 months ago, and it was actually a great success story. Although in the beginning I was like, this could get a little hairy. Everything worked out great. We got a great price on the home. I was able to find a nice place for this person that, him and he had a dog and all that, and he was, very, very happy. So yeah, that was something that could have been one of the bad stories, but ended up being a great story.
Yeah, that's great. It shows the value of having good advisors, good brokers, because with those situations, I find that the emotions are really running high.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the kids, they never really got along great. They
Yeah.
bring up issues from the past
Yeah.
that never got resolved.
Yeah.
And by having, a good attorney and a good real estate broker,
Yeah.
it could really,
Yeah, no,
know.
shows our worth. It shows what we do.
Yeah.
Which is great. This is a question I've been wanting to ask you. What should brokers not say or do when discussing estate or elder issues with clients?
Right. So they should definitely not give legal advice.
Yeah.
So if the client's asking you, what are the tax ramifications, or how should I hold title, or things like that, you should definitely refer them, to an elder law and estate planning attorney right away. And also, I have seen some brokers, not including you, basically not encourage people to go speak to an attorney because they just wanted to get the listing and sell the property as quickly as possible.
Yeah.
And then there were potential issues that needed to be resolved. So definitely don't give legal advice, and definitely not discouraging people from speaking with an attorney. Actually encouraging them.
When people become executors of a will, or they're one of the beneficiaries, they get contacted also by investors. And again, I'm not knocking investors. That's a noble profession. People go in there, they try to buy a home a little bit cheaper than what it's worth, or a lot cheaper than what it's worth. And lots of times, we were saying before, lots of times these homes could be a burden to the ones that inherited the home. So they figure, I'll take it off your hands at a good price. You don't have to worry about anything. All cash, close quickly. Where I feel like and someone like you too, when we have a good team, I just feel like that's a lot of money that they're leaving on the table when it's really not that complicated. It's not as complicated as you think. Just calling the right people, even though there's a fee or there's a cost to it, the cost is well worth it, because you're getting much more money than if you were not using someone like yourself or someone like myself as a broker.
Right.
Yeah, I see that a lot. Whether it's a real estate broker that's not doing the right thing, or an investor that's really obviously looking out for their pocket. Some of these people are vulnerable, and it's where I feel like our expertise comes into play the most.
Yeah, it's definitely a good return on investment when you deal with well-qualified
100%.
professionals.
That's why I like estate sales. I feel like it's like you said, it's worth for them. It's worth their investment to hire someone like me or hire someone like you. I feel like we're doing good, for these people that, first of all, they lost a loved one, and then they take on something that they maybe not be ready to take on, and they need advice. And I feel like that's where our compassion and passion for what we do comes into play. So it's definitely something I enjoy in this job. Can you share a case, obviously anonymously, where early legal planning around real estate made a big difference for one of your clients, where you feel like I really helped this person, whether they realize it or not, you really helped them and saved them a ton of money?
Yes, we have many situations we've been able to help people. A good example of one of those cases would be family came in about 7 years ago, and mom and dad owned the house. They put it into a irrevocable Medicaid-friendly type of trust. Dad passed away. Mom then was continuing to live in the house. Okay. What happened then was mom, 6 years later, went into a nursing home.
Yeah.
Since they had put it into the trust, they were more than 5 years past the look-back period.
Yeah.
So the home was saved. They didn't lose one penny in the value of the house.
Yeah.
If they didn't do that, and now the woman who was a widow was going into a nursing home, Medicaid counts the house at that point, same way they would count a bank account. They count it fully against you, and the family would have lost, a substantial portion of the value of that house.
Yeah.
Another example is we've had people come in, and mom became incapacitated. Maybe they put her into assisted living, and they wanted to sell the house. And mom no longer legally had the ability, because of her her mental decline, to sign the deed.
Yeah.
But we did a power of attorney, a very good, comprehensive, durable power of attorney years ago. So they were able to sell the house by exercising their authority through the power of attorney.
Yeah.
If they didn't have that, they would have had to do a proceeding in court called a guardianship proceeding, which is very expensive, and it takes generally at least 6 months to get the whole thing going.
Yeah.
And there's ongoing fees to keep it in effect and ongoing reports. So, the families are so happy when we're able to protect an asset like the house and also keep them out of guardianship court.
Are you involved in guardianships? You do that too?
Yes, we do guardianships. Unfortunately, a lot of times it's because of a failure to have a good power of attorney in place.
Yeah.
People didn't do it.
Yeah.
and we need to qualify somebody for Medicaid. So we have to ask the judge for authority to shift assets out of the incapacitated person's name to get them on Medicaid.
That's how I got into this field of estate. It was guardianships. There was an attorney that I knew. He was, appointed the guardian for some of his clients, and he needed a realtor. At the time, I don't think you needed to be on the list. He needed a realtor, and I knew him, so he was calling me. He trusted me, and I remember like selling these homes, but then they always had to be court approved. So it took a lot longer for the court to finally approve it. It was something we obviously had to disclose to clients before they got involved in the purchase. But instead of a typical 3 to 4 month sale, it took 6-8 months sometimes, to go through. And like you said, it got more costly. But that's how I kind of got into the whole estate thing too. And guardianships is also something that I'm, getting on the list for too. I just try to get involved in this type of industry as much as I can, help as many attorneys or clients as much as I can. But it's funny when you mention that, because that's how I got started in this business. When I first got my license, I think my first 5 listings, like 2 or 3 of them were guardianships.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Crazy.
And the issue with the guardianship is not only do you have to have an initial court proceeding to have a guardian appointed, which again is usually because of you didn't have the opportunity or you didn't follow through putting a power of attorney in place.
Yeah.
But then once you find a buyer on the house, you have to have a separate hearing. There has to be an appraiser.
Yeah.
There has to be court testimony from the appraiser.
Yeah.
And the court has to feel that this is a good deal.
Exactly.
For the incapacitated person. So now you have 2 court proceedings that could have been avoided.
Yeah.
And it costs a lot of money. It slows things down.
Yeah.
And the property is sitting there perhaps, with all these carrying charges accruing.
Yeah. I think you had to answer my next question, so I'll skip to trends and tips. Are you seeing any trends in how older adults are handling their real estate at their age?
Yes, a couple of things come to mind there. With people living longer and longer, the aging of the population, more and more people are coming to see us to do Medicaid planning, to put their homes into a trust.
Yeah.
Long-term care insurance is an option, but it's become, in most people's view, less of an option because when these policies first came out, the insurance companies didn't price them correctly.
Yeah.
They underpriced them. So what they ended up doing was telling people either you're going to get a lesser benefit at the same premium, or you're going to have to pay a higher premium, in order to continue this policy.
Yeah.
So a lot of people ended up dropping the policies.
Yeah.
And some companies now are very difficult once you file a claim to actually collect on it.
Yeah.
So more and more people are doing Medicaid planning and setting up trusts, and more people, I think, are getting educated about it.
Exactly.
They understand the risks.
Yeah.
And then the other big trend I see is, people have utilized or taken advantage of different senior housing options. Even within assisted living, there's different options. Some facilities have what's called an enhanced assisted living certificate.
Yeah.
Which means that even if you're not ambulatory, you might still be able to be in that facility.
Yeah.
Certain basic level assisted living facilities, if you're not ambulatory, legally, they have to ask you to leave, But then there's other options. There's independent living that has some amenities. Maybe they have a driver that'll take you to doctor's appointments or shopping. They have social activities, They have aides that might be able to help you.
Yeah.
There's even some Medicaid assisted living facilities. Then there's what's called continuing care retirement communities, which is designed on the concept of aging in place, where a person enters this type of campus or facility when they're independent living. And then if they decline, they go into the assisted living portion.
Yeah.
And then if they further decline, they could go into the nursing home portion. And the beauty of that type of place is you can just stay in this one area, and maybe your spouse is in independent living and you're in assisted living, and you could still see each other a lot,
Yeah.
And the other big thing with that is you pay the same monthly fee, whether you're in independent living or the nursing home.
Yeah.
So people like that. But you do have to be careful because some of those CCRCs, as they're called, continuing care retirement communities, they've filed for bankruptcy and they've had financial issues.
Yeah.
So if you're going to go that route, you not only want an attorney to review the records and the contract, but have an accountant, review the finances.
Yeah. So what's one piece of advice you'd give every homeowner over 60 when it comes to their home and their estate?
So definitely top of the list is get a good, durable, comprehensive power of attorney in place. Because again, if you become incapacitated and now the house needs to be sold, you don't want your family to have to go to guardianship court and get the authority to sell it.
Yeah.
So having a good power of attorney is really in place. Another tip is, of course, review the current title on the home
Mm-hmm.
to make sure that it says what you think it says
Yeah.
and that it's set up in a way so that it can be protected if you become sick,
Yeah.
you know. And then if you want to avoid probate and keep everything private, you know, then they should consider, you know, other techniques, which might include a trust or a deed with the life estate or
Mhm.
things like that.
It's great information. So we got
Sure.
2 exit questions for you, and then we'll
Okay.
wrap it up. What should adult children be asking their parents now before there's a crisis?
Yeah, I think really the best question is, you know, mom and dad, have you met with a well-qualified elder law attorney?
Mm-hmm.
And if they say, no, I don't need it, or I'm going to do it in the future,
Mm-hmm.
then that's really not a great spot for them to be in.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But, you know, the initial meeting is typically, you know, it's not a high pressure sales tactic type of thing.
No.
You know, it's more informational and
Information,
educational.
Exactly.
And, you know, they'll get the information and this way they can make an informed decision. But
Yeah.
for most people, when it comes down to, I want to protect my life savings, so it goes to my children and ultimately grandchildren's benefit,
Yeah.
or if I don't do anything, it may go down the drain and I may lose it all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for most people, when they think about it, they say, you know what, I want my family to benefit and I'm willing to take some action. And if you put a power of attorney in place, it's also your opportunity to name the people that you want to be in charge of your affairs
Yeah.
if you become incapacitated.
Yeah.
In guardianship court, the judge decides who's going to be in charge of you,
Yeah.
and it may not be a family member. It may end up being a lawyer off the court list who's a stranger to you and never even met you.
Yeah. Yeah. Such scary scenarios.
Yes.
Last question. I think this is a big one. What documents should every homeowner have in place legally to avoid future real estate headaches?
Yeah, so definitely, again, the power of attorney.
Yeah.
Okay. Obviously, they should have insurance on the house.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
the trust, again, you know, they should consider either a trust or other probate avoidance techniques like the deed with the life estate.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and making sure that the house is protected in the event they become ill, so
Yeah.
they don't lose their most valuable asset.
And I think when they have all these documents, it should be in a place where everybody knows about. It shouldn't be like in a safe deposit box or anything like that, right? It should be something in the
Yes.
house, maybe a fireproof box or something,
Right,
where their children or their loved ones or their executors or whoever knows exactly where it is and how to get to it when the time comes.
Right, exactly. We tell people, do not put it in a safe deposit box.
Yeah.
If something happens to you, the bank may seal the box,
Yeah.
and then we need to get a court order to break it open. So
Yeah.
that's not a good spot to be in.
Yeah.
So it's generally best to keep it at home in a fireproof box or a safe. The only real exception to that is if, say, for example, you live with one of your multiple children, and for some reason you're disinheriting that child or you're giving them less than their quote unquote equal share if there was no will. Because if you pass away and now they have access to it and they
Yeah.
pull the will and they see that they're getting nothing or they're getting less than they thought they were getting, that will may disappear.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so at that
Wow.
case, you probably want to leave it with your nominated executor or with the attorney,
Yeah.
you know, in their will safe.
All right. Anything you want to add before we wrap this up?
No, just thanks for the opportunity.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of this has to do with educating people about it.
Absolutely.
You know,
That's
so
all this is. Yeah, I want to thank you. Actually, I know, we got right before Labor Day weekend here. I know you just got out of work, and I appreciate you coming here and doing this, educating my clients, my audience, my family, whoever's going to be watching this. You know, you definitely shared a lot of great information. I really highly want to recommend Rob. I've recommended Rob quite a bit. Anybody that I recommended to you, people have raved about you and thanked me.
thank you.
I'm in the process of trying to set up an estate myself. Obviously, I'll be using Rob. And if it's okay if I say if anybody reaches out to you and mentions my name, they'll get a free consultation. Is that okay if I say that? Yeah.
Yes, we do normally charge a consultation fee,
Yeah.
but if anybody that gets referred by you, we will offer them a free consultation.
Yeah.
Yes,
So definitely get informed. He'll definitely educate you and guide you in the right direction. All right.
Hey, thanks very much.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate it. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
Thanks, you too,
All
Nick.
right. Take care.